The Russian Defense Ministry has shared a video showing Russian soldiers moving freely through the southern part of Pokrovsk city in eastern Donetsk region and patrolling deserted streets. In the video, Russian soldiers can be seen moving freely without any obstacles along the empty streets. There is no fighting in the video. Pokrovsk, dubbed by Russian media as a gateway to Donetsk, has been the venue of heavy fighting for several months now as Russian troops have been pushing towards the strategic city despite Ukrainian army's efforts to hold ground. Russian maps now show the city under Russian control and Ukrainian troops encircled in Myrnohrad near Pokrovsk. By comparison, Ukrainian maps show Pokrovsk as a gray zone. The Russian Defense Ministry wrote on its official Telegram channel that service members of the grouping provide medical assistance and supply medicines and food to Pokrovsk civilian residents. If necessary, anyone wishing to leave is evacuated to a safe area at a temporary accommodation facility, where they receive assistance, the ministry stated. It added that during the inspection of residential areas, Russian servicemen check the roads and surrounding territory for explosive devices, destroying any dangerous items they find using a shaped charge method. Meanwhile, deep state intelligence source has rejected reports of Russia's capture of Yampol village in Donetsk region as well as claims by Valery Gerasimov, chief of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces that Russian army has captured Kupiansk, 80% of Vovchansk in Kharkiv region, and 70% of Pokrovsk. Meanwhile, the General Staff of Ukrainian Armed Forces on Thursday reported repelling 55 Russia assaults in the Pokrovsk sector, and 200 combat clashes along the entire front line. The number of Russian troops in Kupiansk has decreased over the past week and is now estimated at around 50 invaders. Viktor Trihobov, head of communications for the Joint Forces grouping, said this. According to him, the scenario the enemy had hoped for 10 days ago when they attempted to break through into the southern part of the city did not materialize and has instead worsened for them, Militarny reports. The situation has now become difficult for the enemy, who remains only in the northern areas of the city. According to Intercepted, the enemy has slightly fewer than 50 personnel left, and they are now cut off both from one another and from their main forces because their effective logistics have been disrupted, Trihobov said. According to Trihobov, contrary to the statements of the Russian leadership, there is no and has not been an encirclement of Ukrainian troops in Kupiansk. Moreover, there is a tendency for the Russians to gradually lose control over the city and the areas where they were. He admitted that the situation is difficult for both sides. The city does not have effective logistics on the Russian side, and it is extremely complicated on the Ukrainian side. This means that those units that are directly in the city suffer from the inability to normally receive either ammunition replenishment or sometimes even food. However, the Ukrainians have better logistics and there are fewer Russians left. The situation for them is somewhat more difficult, Trihobov added. The situation also remains difficult on the Ukrainian bridgehead on the left bank of the Oskil River. According to Trihobov, due to the enemy's failure to capture the city itself, they have shifted their efforts to the eastern outskirts of Kupiansk, attempting to eliminate the Ukrainian Defense Forces bridgehead altogether. This information is also confirmed by Yuri Fedorenko, commander of the 429th Achilles Unmanned Systems Regiment. According to him, the enemy is constantly striking the defense forces crossings, which have to be repaired repeatedly. He uses aviation, missiles, and various types of drones to make movement toward the left bank bridgehead impossible. The engineering units responsible for establishing the crossings are doing a tremendous job, he emphasized. In this case, soldiers of the 8th SOF Regiment destroyed a building where Russian troops were positioned in central Kupiansk, using TM-72 anti-tank mines. The regiment's press service released video footage showing the actions of the 8th SOF Regiment operators in the Kharkiv region. During reconnaissance, the SOF team detected enemy forces inside one of the buildings. The enemy had numerical superiority and fortified firing positions. The SOF team broke contact without losses. The building where the enemy had been holding its defense was later completely destroyed using TM-72 mines, the statement said. Osint researcher Belitzeling on the social network X identified that the events shown in the video took place near the city's central square.
A Russian citizen currently in Azerbaijan is suspected of coordinating a plot to bomb cargo planes in Europe in 2024. Russia and Europe are pressuring Baku to detain and extradite this man, Yaroslav Mikhailov, the Washington Post reported. Why Mikhailov is suspected of coordinating attacks that set off air cargo fires in Europe last year. Officials say he directed the operation from within Europe and then fled to Azerbaijan using a fake passport. A factor that shows his importance to the Kremlin is that the heads of Russia's 3 intelligence agencies, the FSB, SVR and GRU, are pressuring Azerbaijan to return Mikhailov to Russia and not grant Poland's extradition request, Western security officials told the newspaper. Poland, Great Britain, Ukraine and Lithuania are lobbying the Azerbaijani government to prevent Mikhailov's return to Russia, officials say. The Washington Post said it prepared the article based on interviews with more than 20 Western security officials and investigative materials it obtained. According to one document, Poland has sent a secret request to Interpol for Mikhailov's arrest for terrorist operations. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov did not respond to the newspaper's questions, saying, "We have nothing to comment on here." The newspaper writes that the attempt by Moscow's intelligence services to interfere in the process shows the importance Russia attaches to trusted proxies in its hybrid war against the West. Last July, packages containing timers and flammable magnesium compounds escaped inspection in Lithuania and were delivered to warehouses in Germany, Poland and England, where the fires they caused quickly spread. Mikhailov represents a new generation of Russian operatives recruited by the GRU, the Russian Military Intelligence Service, for their connections and capabilities in criminal organizations, said a senior European security official. Mikhailov, 37, has previously faced smuggling charges in Russia. The newspaper was unable to contact him. At least 20 suspects in Lithuania and Poland have faced terrorism and other charges for their involvement in the plot. The newspaper writes that Azerbaijan has so far rejected requests for Mikhailov's extradition. As a result, his status remains uncertain. Although not officially detained, he is under surveillance and is not allowed to leave the country. A spokesperson for the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry also did not respond to the newspaper's request for comment. The Washington Post notes that it is unclear whether the Trump administration raised the issue at peace talks in Washington on August the 8th. Azerbaijan and Armenia initialed a peace agreement in Washington. Western officials say the prospects for Mikhailov's extradition are unclear, but they also point out that Azerbaijan is strengthening ties with Europe amid tensions with Russia. Experts explain Putin's attempts to improve relations with Baku also by his desire to achieve Mikhailov's extradition.